I'll teach you exactly how I made this skirt, from start to finish. I also made another version of the skirt using the same pattern, this time shorter with a taller waistband. What you will need. For the material, I used about 1.5 meters of this yellow linen. Any medium to heavyweight fabric, similar to denim, will work. I would suggest making your paper patterns first, then laying them out on something like a bed sheet to get a rough idea of how much fabric you will need to buy. A 6-inch closed end zipper, matching thread, a small to medium sized button. I have a few buttons to choose from and I usually can't decide until the very end, and fusible interfacing for the waistband. To estimate how much, measure your waist for the length and about 3 inches for the width, or more depending on how tall you want the waistband to be. For the pattern drafting, you'll need any type of paper, a pen and ruler. A curved ruler is also helpful. A measuring tape. For the sewing, you'll need a sewing machine, clips and pins, an iron, fabric scissors, a fabric pen or chalk, and a seam ripper. Let's break this all down. The skirt is made up of 15 pieces. The front is 2 separate panels sewn together. This is so we can attach the zipper. The zipper part is made up of 2 pieces, the fly-facing piece and the zipper shield. The 2 pocket pieces are then added on top of the front panels. The back panel is 1 big piece, sewn to the sides of each front panel piece. The waistband is attached to the edges of all the panel pieces, and then the 7 belt loops are added in. A cute skirt is formed. I'm trying to over-explain and make things as easy as possible for you because I know pattern drafting is not fun for a beginner, but it's also really rewarding, so hopefully you can follow along easily. We're going to be doing the front and back panels of the skirt in one go, so make sure you have enough paper laid out. Draw 2 vertical lines 3/8 of an inch apart. These lines are also your center front and center back lines. The center front is the line that runs straight down the middle of your body. For example, when we are drafting the front panel, we will only be doing one side of your front, since the other side will be identical. There's no point doing both. The same goes for the back panel. Draw a long horizontal line about 1 inch from the edge. This is so you have enough room to add in seam allowance later. Hopefully this will make sense once we keep going. Using your measuring tape, measure the circumference of your waist, which is around or just above your belly button. Make sure the tape is tight around you. Just breathe in and out naturally and not like you're gasping for air. For the front panel, take this measurement and add 1/2 inch to it. This extra 1/2 inch will make the skirt even more comfortable to put on and wear. Divide this measurement by 4, because remember we are only focusing on 1/4 of the body. Then add 1¼ of an inch extra for the front dart. Now from the corner of one of your vertical lines, mark this measurement out. Also mark the middle between these 2 points, as we will use this as a guide to create the darts later. Then divide the waist measurement by 4 again, and this time we will add in 2 inches for the dart. This will form the back panel. Mark this point on the opposite side and again mark the middle point between these 2 points. If you are unsure what the purpose of darts are, let me quickly explain. A standard waist dart is shaped like a triangle, and when it's folded and sewn, it takes out the extra fabric and helps the skirt curve smoothly from the hip to the waist, following the shape of your body. For this skirt design, there will be 2 darts at the front and 2 at the back. We are going to measure the distance from our waist to our hip. Wrap the tape around the fullest part of your hips. Use a clip to help you mark the spot. Then measure from the clip to your waist, which was just above the belly button. The measurement was 7.5 inches for me. Mark this point vertically from the top on both the center front and center back lines. Now, grab the circumference of the fullest part of your hips. Add in 1/2 inch so it's not too tight. This is also your chance to make the skirt even looser if you want. Just add in maybe 1 inch instead of 1/2 inch. Divide this number by 4 and add this measurement for both the front and back panels horizontally from where we marked that 7.5 inch point. Now decide how long you want the skirt to be from your hip. I'm going with 7 inches. If you're going for a more tighter fit, I wouldn't go too long unless you want to take tiny human steps everywhere you go. And add this measurement for both the front and back panels horizontally. Take that same hip measurement from the top and add it to the front and back panels of this new point. Again, you can also add more inches here if you want the skirt a little more flowier, but just make sure the fabric isn't too stiff. Connect all the points on each side. Let's finish those darts. For the front panel, from that midpoint we made at the top, mark down 3.5 inches. Then from that same midpoint, measure out evenly a space that equals 1.25 inch. Connect these 2 points to form a triangle. For the back panel, again from that midpoint, mark down 5.5 inches. Then at the top, measure out evenly a space that equals 2 inches. Connect these points. Next, at the very top corners of the center front and center back, mark down 3/8 inch. Then connect these points to the side edges of the skirt. This creates a kind of gentle dip at the waistline for a more natural shape. Finally, add in 3/8 inch seam allowance to all the sides, except the center back, as we will be cutting this piece on the fold, which I will further explain later. We have already added the 3/8 inch seam allowance for the center front at the start, if you remember. For the bottom of the skirt, instead of adding 3/8, add about 3/4, as we will be folding the fabric in twice. Lastly, it's also important to mark each piece and also mark the center back with cut on the fold so you don't forget when you go to place your pattern pieces on the fabric. Cut this all out. For the pockets, draw a horizontal line that's 6 inches long, then 10.5 inches vertically, another 2 inches horizontally. From the other side, draw a line that is 5 inches vertically, then connect these points. Add in 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. For the fly facing, draw a horizontal line that is 2 inches. On one of the ends, go up 6 inches, and on the other, go up 7.5 inches. I'm doing this length because my zipper is 6 inches. If you happen to have a 7-inch zipper, just add in an extra inch to both these measurements. Connect these points using a curved ruler or freehand the curve. For the zipper shield, draw another 2-inch point, then a line vertically that is 7 inches. Again, if your zipper is a little longer, just add in more inches, then connect it to the 7.5 inch point on the fly facing piece. We will cut this piece on the fold here, so mark this. For the belt loop, draw a 1.25 inch by 3.5 inch rectangle. This will be cut on the fold along the longer side, so be sure to mark that too. We will measure and create the waistband once we start assembling this skirt. The reason I do it this way is because as you're a beginner, it's easy to get measurements slightly off, so it can be helpful to make each piece as you go, giving you a chance to test and adjust along the way. Before you go and cut into the final fabric, I would highly recommend making a prototype first. Future you will thank you. Make sure the fabric is folded. Place any pattern piece marked cut on the fold along the folded edge. We'll be cutting around these shapes to create symmetrical pieces. What you will need to cut: 2 front panel pieces, 1 back panel piece cut on the fold, 2 fly facing pieces, 1 zipper shield cut on the fold, 7 belt loops cut on the fold, and 2 pocket pieces. And just remember, you'll also need fabric for the waistband. Grab 1 pocket piece. Fold the side that is on an angle in by 3/8 of an inch. The wrong sides of the fabric should be touching together. I'm using a fabric that doesn't really have a clear right or wrong side, so sorry if it's a bit hard to tell. I'll try to add an on-screen indicator to show you which side it is. Now take the same fold and fold it in once more to make a smaller fold, pressing as we go. Then fold the long side in by 3/8 of an inch, and then the side perpendicular to it by 3/8 of an inch again. We will sew a straight stitch along the folded edge that is on an angle. Make the same folds for the other pocket, but please make sure the process is reflected for the opposite sides for both pieces. This edge is where the opening of a pocket will be. Set these aside for now. Now let's add those darts. With the wrong sides of the fabric facing you, place the matching paper pattern on top. Use your fabric pen, mark the top 2 dart points, and using a tiny pin, I'm pricking a hole for the bottom point and marking where it lands. Then I'm connecting these points. As you can see, I'm also reflecting the same thing for the other side of the back panel. I'm pinning each point together . Sew a straight stitch from the bottom point to where those 2 points are now connected. Doing the same for the 2 front darts. Press everything. Take those front panels with the right sides of the fabric facing you. Take the pocket pieces and place them on each side of the front panel. Press everything again. Pin these pockets to the panel so they don't move. We'll sew a straight stitch along the bottom and the inner sides. Get as close as you can to the folded edge. Before we continue assembling the pieces, we're going to finish the edges of some of the pieces so they don't fray. If you have a serger or overlocker, use this. I'll just be doing a normal zigzag stitch. Take the zipper fly facing piece, zigzag stitch all around except the short side at the top. Take the zipper shield, zigzag stitch the long side that is not the folded edge, and then the short side that is on an angle. Then take the front panel pieces and zigzag stitch the center front edges on both pieces. Take the zipper fly facing, line it up at the top of the left front panel. The right sides of the fabric should be facing each other. We're going to do a stitch about 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Once stitched, unfold the piece and do a top stitch as close as you can to the folded edge that you just created. Take the zipper, flip it over so the wrong side is placed on the fabric, and the zipper should be about 1/2 inch down from the top. Pin the right side to the fly facing and sew a straight stitch just down the middle of that zip. Fold the fly facing piece inside, clip the edges so the fold stays in place. Now please pay close attention. Make sure the tail of the zipper closest to the edge is out of the way when we're about to do this next stitch. We don't want to stitch this part. Using your second fly facing piece as a guide, flip the fabric over and draw a line around with your fabric pen. Go to your sewing machine and we want to stitch down that fly facing piece inside from the outside. Once you're done, take your zipper shield, line up the edge of the shield that is not zigzag stitched to the edge of the fly facing. Make sure the edge that is on an angle is at the bottom. Grab your zipper, pin it in place, and sew a straight stitch. Fold each of the center edges of both panels in by 3/8 of an inch. Line up that panel edge with the zipper shield edge and stitch that top half in place. Do an extra top stitch to this newly attached panel. And yay, you just installed a zipper. You can cut any excess fabric from the zipper if you need. Line up the bottom left edge on top of the bottom right edge. Pin it in place. And now I'm just going to create 2 parallel stitches on either side. Now let's assemble these panels. Line up the sides of the front panel pieces to the sides of the back panel. The fabric should be right sides facing each other. And sew a straight stitch with about 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance on each side. We will also do a zigzag stitch to finish the raw edges of each side. As an optional step, I'm going to do a understitch. This is going to add a sort of decorative element, but it's also going to keep the seams inside stay put. And sometimes when the fabric is a little heavyweight, it's nice to have them out of the way. I'm folding the seam towards the back panel, then sew a straight stitch through all 3 layers of the fabric, as close to the edge as possible. Before we move on, I'm just quickly going to stitch the top of the pockets so they don't move around when we're adding the waistband. Now let's create that waistband. Measure the entire top edge of the skirt, including the zipper part. Take this measurement, decide how tall you want the waistband to be. I'm going with 2 inches. Remember, the waistband will be folded, so the finished height will be 1 inch for me. Then add 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance all the way around. Cut this piece on the final fabric and cut the same piece on the interfacing fabric. Fuse the interfacing to the main fabric using an iron. Just quickly, the reason we are adding fusible interfacing to the waistband is it's going to be easier to install that buttonhole, and also this part of the skirt is more likely to stretch over time, and the interfacing will try and stop that from happening. I've also removed 3/8 of an inch off the interfacing on both sides to create less bulk when we fold it all together. Fold the entire thing in half. The wrong sides of the fabric should be touching. Then fold the long sides in by 3/8 of an inch, pressing like there's no tomorrow. Unfold the waistband and place it along the top edge of the skirt. The right sides of the fabric should be facing. Make sure 3/8 of an inch is left hanging off both ends. I would pin the ends first and then the rest as I'm demonstrating in this video. If your waistband ends up being a little too long, don't worry, just trim off the extra. Now go ahead and stitch along that first 3/8 of an inch fold. Once finished, let's focus on the sides that are now hanging out. Fold the waistband backwards so it looks like it's inside out, and we're going to create a stitch down that seam, being very careful not to stitch the zipper part in the process, as we're going to flip this part right side out again. I'm cutting the excess fabric and flipping the waistband right side out again using a sharpish tool. Do the exact same thing for the other side. I do apologize, the video got a little bit blurry and off to the side here, but I hope I'm making sense. Before we stitch the waistband in place, let's cut some notches. Take your scissors and very carefully cut as close as you can to the stitching line. Tiny scissors work better. The reason for doing this is that it will allow the fabric to bend nicely and for the seams to lay flat, especially since the waistband is a little curved, so I wouldn't skip this step. Now pin the other end of the waistband to that first stitch we created. And sew a straight stitch along the entire edge. This stitch can be tricky to get perfect since it will be visible on the outside. Take your time and go slowly. This really just takes practice. Use the inner stitch as your guide and position the unstitched edge of the waistband just slightly over it. Let's make those belt loops. Fold the long sides in so the edges meet. Make sure the wrong sides of the fabric are facing. Fold them again, press. Top stitch along both the long sides as close as you can to the edge. I'm just sewing one of the short sides to get to the other long side to save time and precious spread. Do this for all the belt loops. Then fold the belt loops at the top and bottom about 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't matter which side, as it's all kind of right side. Press again. And attach them to the skirt. I'm doing 4 at the front, 1 on each side and 1 at the back. It's up to you how you want these displayed. Just clip them in place and then stitch them, going back and forth a few times with the needle at the top and bottom, as close to the edge as you can. Let's add that button. I'd always recommend doing a test buttonhole on some test fabric. You want to decide where you want that buttonhole to go. For me, it was right in the middle of the waistband and centered on the zipper panel. My machine has an automatic buttonhole, but if you don't, either do it manually or use tiny zigzag stitches on your machine. Open up the buttonhole using a seam ripper. Now make sure you try on the skirt at this point. Then I'd recommend hand stitching the button to see if it's in the right place. You can then use the sewing machine zigzag stitch set to 0 length to stitch it in place. This method won't work for large buttons, so be careful Make sure the needle doesn't hit the button. Turn the hand wheel manually to check before you start sewing. I'm adding some further reinforcement stitches to the zipper part. The reason for this is if you're constantly opening and closing this part, we just kind of want to minimize the chances of the thread ripping open. So we're doing tiny zigzag stitches in these areas. Lastly, let's clean the raw edges at the bottom. This is also another opportunity to wear the skirt and decide if you want things a little shorter. Fold the edges in each time by about 3/8 of an inch. Press and sew a straight stitch along the entire folded edge from the inside. And you're done, yay! If you're not convinced you want to make this, I hope I get you next time. Thank you.